Hey guys, it's Middle of the Res Road back again for our episode on the 25th. Alyssa, you have a bunch of events for us, and I'm kind of excited about this weekend.
Yeah, so this weekend on the Powwow Highway, we have the Bad River Monoman Powwow in Wisconsin for the 26th, 27th, and 28th. So I think we might plan on going to that.
Okay.
I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm always down for a powwow.
Yeah. And then other events, we have the Lake Superior Dragon Boat Festival at Barker's Island on the 26th and 27th. And also, my favorite time of the year, the Minnesota State Fair from August 25th through the September 5th.
Why is it your favorite?
Because I like food.
I think the corn is your favorite, isn't it?
Corn is my favorite.
Do you ever go to the state fair?
You know, I have went to the state fair, and I don't go every year, but I went last year with the family, and before that, my wife and actually the first place we lived was in Roseville, so close to the state fair. And
Oh, okay.
so,
Oh, yeah, that's real close.
every once in a while we just go there in the evening for dinner. You know, nothing but corn dogs, and cheese curds, and then sick to your stomach the next day.
Yep.
But it tastes good.
Yeah. My other favorite thing is the deep fried green olives. Have you had those before?
I haven't had
Oh
those
my God,
there.
they're so good.
They are very good, yeah. Which brings us to our trivia question, actually. How many people attend the state fair per year? So, don't say your answers yet. Say it for the end of the interview. But we have a very special guest from one of our sponsors, actually, Enbridge, Paul, who kind of talked to us about his tribal engagement team. Thanks for coming on to the podcast and talking to us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ricky.
So, Paul, what do you do at Enbridge?
Well, my role at Enbridge is Director of Tribal Engagement in the U.S.
What is that like? What does a day-to-day look like for you?
You know, so I have a small team that works underneath me, or works for me, and they do a lot of the engagement with tribal nations across where we operate and perhaps build projects in the United States. And you know, from a typical day might be meeting with someone from my team out at one of the tribes or on the reservation, meeting with the tribal government. It might also be talking to the media, like like we're doing today on this podcast. On a given day, I might be just doing administrative work, approving invoices and timesheets and those sorts of things. So it's quite varied, but it's been a lot of fun too.
So you do office work, and then you get to go out on the field, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. I am out in the field from time to time. Last week, I spent a couple days at one of our project sites in Wisconsin. This week already, I spent a day over meeting with one of the tribal councils in Minnesota. A couple weeks ago, I was in Michigan in the St. Ignace area, meeting with a whole bunch of different tribal contractors and businesses. So it's been fun to get to know different people and engage with the different communities.
So you're a busy man, is what you're saying.
Well, aren't we all, right?
Lots of travel, though.
There is some travel, yeah, absolutely. You need to get out to the communities. You need to go to them if you're going to engage properly and be able to learn, from the different tribal communities, and hear from them and have them, hopefully, influence how we do work.
How long have, excuse me, how long has the tribal engagement been around for Enbridge?
Tribal engagement at Enbridge, let's say maybe just more generally, Indigenous engagement has been around for quite some time. I think 2001 is when the company first adopted a policy related to engagement with Indigenous people. I think it was our Aboriginal people's policy. But primarily the work that focused on engagement with Indigenous people, I would say, happened more in Canada than in the U.S. And it's been like that, I think, for quite some time. Our Indigenous engagement policies changed over time. Today it's called our Indigenous Peoples Policy. I think it was most recently updated in 2018, and now we have dedicated staff in both the U.S. and Canada who do Indigenous engagement for the company. So, it's evolved over time. It's a journey as, we learn as a company, and we learn from the communities where we operate and build projects. We've learned as a recent we need to do more engagement with Indigenous people. So that in part is what drove the creation of my role in the U.S. and why we have more resources in the U.S. now doing this work.
Well, Enbridge is technically, is it a Canadian company then?
Enbridge is headquartered in Calgary, Alberta.
Okay, yeah.
But it's a publicly traded company, so
Mm.
if you were to buy stock in the company, you could be a part owner. The stock's traded on the New York Stock Exchange and the Toronto Stock Exchange.
Oh, okay.
Are you trying to get me to buy stock?
I'm not trying. I am not trying to get you to
I'm
buy
just
stock,
kidding,
but
yeah.
just to help further describe,
Yeah.
who the owners are, where we're headquartered. But yeah, we are headquartered out of Calgary, Alberta.
So have you always been around from this area?
I was born in Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Mostly grew up in Minnesota. I went to college at the University of Minnesota in Duluth.
Oh, okay.
And after college, I left, this area. I think we're in Cloquet today.
Yep.
And, I've come back to Duluth several times throughout my career. First, after college, I worked a couple different jobs, and I came back to Enbridge I came to Enbridge in 2006. I moved away from this area, I think, twice, and then came back to this area twice while with Enbridge, once to go work on a wind farm in Colorado, and another time to work in the pipeline operations up in Edmonton, Alberta, and then moved back to Duluth.
So most of your life you've been.
Yeah, both my kids were born here in Duluth. I think I've spent probably maybe 12 of the 16 years I've been with Enbridge here in Duluth.
Oh, wow. I didn't know you worked for Enbridge for 16 years.
Yep, 16 years. It'll be 16 years this October.
Did you go to school for like communications or something for like your current position, or what'd you go to school
Nope.
for?
I went to school for engineering. My degree was in industrial engineering. And actually, right out of college, I took a job as a robotics engineer, working in a factory. I didn't stay there very long. I think I enjoyed traveling more and seeing more of the countryside, engaging with people more, and that led to a job later on with a wind farm development company. That was my first job in the energy industry. Gamesa is the name of the company. I think they're owned now by Siemens. They build wind farms, and I was a developer for them for a few years, and then I came to Enbridge and worked as an engineer, and then did construction management. And through probably a whole bunch of projects, I found myself engaging more with communities and really appreciating the value that the company and I think the communities got through that engagement. And some of that included engaging with tribes in the U.S., where I did some projects. And then I think it was around 2019 is when I actually found myself moving into our public affairs department within the company. It's called PACS, Public Affairs, Communications, and Sustainability. And my role in that department is to oversee our tribal engagement in the U.S. And that's really focused on making sure that our business operations in the United States is fulfilling our Indigenous peoples policy and the commitments in there.
So engaging with the community, is that what made you want to get into tribal engagement?
I wanted to get into this space at the time, or around 2018-19, because I saw a need for it. As an engineer, maybe this is cliche, I enjoy problem solving and challenges, and I could see that the lack of some of the engagement that we were doing was having an impact on the business, and it was having an impact on communities. And I thought and advocated internally that the company needed to do more engagement with tribes, and I was met with a positive response and then an opportunity to do it.
How does it benefit tribes? I'm just going to grill you a little bit.
Well, I think as we propose projects or infrastructure work or do our operations, if we're engaging with tribes, we're learning more about what their needs are, whether it's to ensure their citizens benefit or to better protect their resources. It gives us a chance to shape how we do business. And I think that in turn benefits tribes. I can just give you maybe some examples. We're here in Minnesota on the Line 3 replacement project. There was a lot of interest from Indigenous people there was a push during the project to do a tribal cultural resources survey. That was not originally part of the project. We agreed to commit to do that work. The Fond du Lac Band of Natural Resources, or the Fond du Lac Band, their Natural Resources Department and their Tribal Historic Preservation Officer led the Tribal Cultural Resources Survey. And that survey came up with sites that needed to be protected. And it led to changes in the project. I think there were about 30 sites identified that we had to apply some form of mitigation, whether that was a reduction in workspace or monitoring or a small change in the route. So I think that in turn benefited Indigenous people. It led to changes in the project. I think another benefit that was derived from the Line 3 replacement project is the economic benefit. We heard from some community members they wanted to participate economically in the project. We committed to do $100 million worth of business with Native people and Native-owned businesses. And today we're excited that about $370 million has been spent either with Native American member-owned businesses or on wages with tribal citizens here.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that it was 300 million. I know you guys were involved with tribal businesses for a little bit, but I didn't know it was to that extent. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's close to 370 million now, and it's still counting because we still have some restoration work going on, and we still have pipe removal to do on Line 3 replacement. But on a quarterly basis, we're required to report that tribal economic activity to the Public Utility Commission in Minnesota. So those filings are all filed publicly, so you can recover them from the Minnesota Public Utility Commission. And also the Public Utility Commission has audited that spend. And an auditor's been out reviewing our ledger and our contracts and meeting with the tribal member-owned businesses that we've worked with to ensure that spending is accurate.
Do you guys have a certain amount, like percentage-wise, to interact with Indigenous communities, like work, careers, or anything like that?
To some extent there are some percentages, but they also need to appropriately match the makeup of the communities where you're working. So in some areas of our work, there are very few Indigenous people, and the inclusion is less. In other areas where we work, there's a higher inclusion of Indigenous people. The company, Enbridge, has set a target for inclusion of a variety of different underrepresented groups in our business. So we've set several social category goals. One of those is to ensure that 3.5% of Enbridge's employee base is Indigenous. I think today we're at around 2.4%, 2.3 or 2.4% company-wide. So we are actively trying to recruit Indigenous applicants. And in some areas where you can apply Indigenous preference, we do that on some of our job postings as well. So I think it depends on where we're doing work, but also as a company, we are seeking to make sure that there's a certain percentage of our employee base that's Indigenous, along with veteran, disability, ethnic minority. There are some other targets set too.
What are some of the goals that you guys have when it comes to interacting with tribes? And
Yeah, I think it really starts with Indigenous peoples policy and the commitments we make. So some of those commitments are a commitment to engage, a commitment to ensure benefits are realized by Indigenous communities. And, from those commitments drive, some of the goals. So on projects like Line 3 replacement, we had set a goal to do $100 million worth of business with Indigenous communities. As a company now, we've set a goal to ensure that 3.5% of our employee makeup is identifies as Indigenous. So those are some of the types of goals we're setting. We also set goals on other projects in Wisconsin. The Line 5 reroute project, I think we set a goal to do $45 million worth of spending with tribal member-owned businesses or on tribal member wages on that project. So it really depends on where we're working, but those are some of the goals we've set.
Do you also have a percentage for work on that pipeline? Because I know Line 3 was 7% were Indigenous. Do you have a...
Yeah, I mean, the 7% target for inclusion online through replacement was, we'll say, a soft target or a non-punitive target. So there were no repercussions on the contractor for not meeting those targets. But it was a target that we measured against, because as we looked at the average population of the counties that we were working through, if you were to take each one of the counties and look at the makeup of how many Indigenous people are in those counties, and then just take a simple average, it was around 7%. So again, our goal oftentimes is to try to better match the makeup of the community with the work.
I suppose
or
because you
using.
said it all depends on where you guys are at.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what have you guys done within the Native community, like as far as like sponsoring events or?
Yeah, I mean, there's been lots of different examples. Some of the tribal community colleges we've provided scholarships to for 10 years or more.
I didn't know 10
locally here.
years.
Yep. During COVID, we spent, I don't know, I want to say it was almost a couple $1 million on COVID relief to different Indigenous communities across North America. We've sponsored lots of different events. One of the favorites that I've done is the Wells Academy. So Wells Technology out of Bemidji. Andy Wells is the owner of Wells Technology. He's a Red Lake band member, has a very successful manufacturing business. And he has an academy that reaches out to people who can't get a job elsewhere. Maybe they've come out of prison here recently. Maybe they've, for whatever reason, have run into barriers in their life, right, and they can't get a job. And he essentially brings them in and provides training at Wells Technology for an individual for a year, sometimes more. And he does a fundraiser every year. Oftentimes it's a golf event to sponsor Wells Academy, and I've oftentimes participated at that event. And I just love the opportunity that I get then to meet some of the graduates from the Wells Academy and just see the skills they've developed and how they've been able to change their life working for his business.
Yeah, we actually met
Yeah.
Andy at at the Res conference in Vegas.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
He's the
Amazing
nicest
person.
man.
Yes.
You know what's incredible? That's where we met Andy Wells. And yet he's in Bemidji.
I know he's so close, but met him in Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted to go tour his site, and we talked to Andy and one of his graduates, and
Yeah, we're actually hoping to tour his site hopefully in either September or October.
Okay, great.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. In fact, he's expanded his business a little bit back on to the Red Lake Reservation. So you asked about sponsorships. We had sponsored financially Oshkomajitada, which is a Workforce Development Institute on Red Lake, the development of a new manufacturing building there. This was several years ago. And now Oshkomajitada has partnered with Wells Technology to put some CNC machines and some manufacturing training over back on the Red Lake Reservation. So it was neat to actually see the extension of his business and the Wells Academy back onto Red Lake, and that was
that's
pretty
awesome.
neat. And excited to see that it was made possible by Enbridge's funding of their technology building there in Red Lake.
So speaking of that, what other activities have you been a part of within the Native community? Or do you have a favorite example or something like that?
I've had a chance to go to a few powwows now that I'm in this job, and I hadn't before. Sorry to say I hadn't, and I was missing out. But it's been eye-opening and kind of exciting to go to the, for example, I went to the Honor of the Earth powwow at Lac-Courte a couple years ago, and brought my family with. And my daughters thought it was pretty cool to see the dancing. They had to buy some stuff there, some souvenirs to bring home, and that was pretty special. And then just this summer in July, I was up in Calgary, and the Calgary Stampede was taking place. And they had a powwow and a dance competition there, and I went to some of that, and that was awesome. And also got to visit the Elbow River Camp, and it's an Indigenous camp that is stood up in conjunction with the Calgary Stampede, and Enbridge has been a longtime sponsor of the Elbow River Camp. And in fact, one of our employees, longtime employees in the Calgary areas from the Sutina reservation, and is connected with the Elbow River camp there too. And so I've had a neat opportunity to get some personal tours of the camp, and it's just neat to hear about the TP and the history and the culture behind it. And it's not my culture, but it's been an awesome one to learn about.
I suppose before taking this job, was it kind of a culture shock when you took it?
It was and wasn't. I've learned a ton, and I'm learning more every day. And I appreciate everyone that's, given their time to help educate me. But even before taking this job, I had opportunities to respond to questions that came about our projects and operations from Indigenous people that oftentimes I didn't know the answer to, and I had to do some research and learn. I also had the opportunity to work here on the Fond du Lac Reservation in 2009 and 10 when I managed a pipeline project through the Fond du Lac Reservation. So that was a real learning opportunity as well.
I would say, do you enjoy this job? Does it bring you joy?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. There are some hard times.
Right.
There are some. I face criticism. The company faces criticism. But going back to the Wells Technology example, when you actually get out there and meet the people, and see the impacts, some of the positive impacts that you can have, it's pretty incredible. We sponsored a wild rice processing plant on the White Earth Reservation a couple years ago, and the funds that we sponsored, I think it's Brian Buck's wild rice processing facility, were put right into the facility, and I got a chance to then go tour the facility after the improvements were made, and just to see how appreciative Brian was, and to see how much rice he had there to process and how hard he was working at it, but yet how much joy he was experiencing in his work, right? Just brought me joy, so it's pretty exciting to see, how some of what we can do as a corporation benefits communities, and then to actually go see those benefits in action is awesome.
Well, I'm sure like everybody you sponsor is very thankful for everything you guys do.
We definitely are, yeah.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, we're happy to sponsor Middle of the Res Road podcast, and it's neat to see, you guys bringing your voice, out to the internet and out to podcast subscribers, and I hope others sponsor you as well. And in the end, it's your voice. We're not asking you to air anything particular, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to speak.
I think this will be very informational for a lot of our listeners, and because I feel like maybe they don't know like that side of the company. I think maybe sometimes they just see the bad.
Sure. I think it's easy to look for the bad, and when it comes to infrastructure companies. But I'm excited about what Enbridge is doing. We're a big business, and maybe I'll just share a little bit about Enbridge. Is that okay? If I just share a little bit about the business? I mean, Enbridge was started actually here where we are today in around 1950. A pipeline was built from Edmonton, Alberta to Superior, Wisconsin.
That's line one, right?
Yeah, that's line one. Yeah. And then guess what pipeline was built next? Line two. So we've had a long history here. But the company is also growing and diversifying in different ways, which is awesome, right? It started out as an oil pipeline company. In the 90s, we got into the gas side of the business quite a bit. In 2002, we built our first wind farm. So we've been in the renewable business for 20 years. I don't think people realize that.
Oh, 20 years.
Yeah, 2002 is when we built our first wind farm. And today we're a business that has four primary business units. We have liquid pipelines, which are primarily oil. We have natural gas transmission pipelines. We have a large natural gas utility, so those that get gas delivered to their home in the Toronto area get that service from Enbridge. So I think we have close to 3 million customers in our gas utility, so it's a big utility company. And then we've got a big renewable business. I think there's 24 wind farms now, 17 solar energy facilities. We have a geothermal facility out in Oregon.
I was going to ask about
that
that.
we're an investor in. Yep. And one of the other things I think that's really neat, we're into the hydrogen energy space too. So in 2018, we built our first hydrogen to gas facility that was using or power to gas facility that was using excess power to generate hydrogen. And then just this year, we're now blending some hydrogen in the natural gas stream.
I read about that.
To some of our customers, which is awesome, right? Because you can burn hydrogen, and when you burn hydrogen, it doesn't emit any carbon.
Oh, it's water.
Right, it's water vapor. Yeah, that's right. So you can reduce the carbon emissions. When I say blending, we're blending the hydrogen in with natural gas in order to reduce the carbon intensity of the for the natural gas users. And you can't just take a natural gas furnace and just feed it hydrogen instead. You'd actually have to make some changes to the furnace. But we're learning that you can blend some hydrogen with the natural gas, and that furnace will still operate, today, the one you have in your home. So we're doing some of that work in some of our utilities. So it's pretty neat. Enbridge is investing in the future. I mean, we say as a company, tomorrow is on, and we're fully engaged and committed to the energy transition. We think it has to be at a reasonable pace so that energy is still affordable and still accessible.
Right.
But it's pretty cool to see the direction we're heading as a company.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Enbridge's motto, life takes energy. What does that mean? I know what it means, but could you maybe explain it a little bit better?
Well, I'm going to restate it. Life takes energy, right?
Yeah.
Everything we do takes energy, whether it's the food we eat, gas in a vehicle, or, plugging your vehicle in, right? All of that energy, powers our lives. Even the things you buy, right, on Amazon, they've got to get transported to you,
Right.
and they need to get manufactured, and all of that takes energy. As a company, we're proud of the energy we deliver. It in turn provides for the quality of life that we all have. But we're also, proud that the future is one that's bright. And again, back to the tomorrow is on. Energy. We also say Enbridge is a bridge to the energy future. We are building that bridge, right? We're building energy transition infrastructure. In fact, we back to the Indigenous piece for a second. We announced a cool partnership on a carbon capture project in Alberta that we partnered with some First Nations on. So a true equity, co-ownership type partnership where we partnered with some First Nations on a proposal in Alberta to do carbon capture and long-term storage. So another a cool opportunity.
So that kind of brings me to my last question. How important would you say, the recent Line 3, I think it's 93 now, the recent Line 3 and Line 5, how important are those to, the Great Lakes region in upper Minnesota?
Our energy supply is really important, right? Back to whether you order something on Amazon, that's got to get here by, truck or plane or otherwise. And, that fuel that fuels the transportation of all that industry is critical to our daily lives. And Line 3, Line 5, they move a tremendous amount of oil, right? And that oil is used not just in the Midwest, but, as far as Eastern Canada and as far down as the Gulf Coast. But taking that product out of the mix would be a huge hit. So I don't know if this is exact, but it's close. I think, for example, Minnesota consumes somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000 barrels a day. Let's say give or take 50. And Line 3 and Line 5 move more than what Minnesota consumes on a daily basis. So there's more than a state's worth of crude oil moving through those pipelines. So if Line 3 is moving 760,000 barrels a day, that's nearly twice
Twice the daily consumption of Minnesota
right.
alone.
So imagine taking 2 states' worth of supply out of the picture, whether that just hits Minnesota. If that were to, all be going to Illinois, if Illinois was completely without oil, that would have price impacts, not just on Illinois, but Indiana and Wisconsin and Minnesota and Iowa and Michigan. And so, it's a important fuel feedstock for the Midwest and the Great Lakes region.
I didn't know that that's the consumption rate either, too, of just Minnesota alone. It's kind of crazy to think about how much people demand oil and natural gas, and without even realizing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So Minnesota has 2 refineries. Those 2 refineries are located down in the Twin Cities area. And those 2 refineries get a large portion of their crude oil supply from Enbridge pipeline. So Enbridge transports that crude oil to Minnesota from places like Canada and North Dakota to a terminal called Clearbrook, which is just northwest of Bemidji. And then another pipeline system called the Minnesota Pipeline connects to our Clearbrook terminal and transports the crude oil used by the Minnesota refineries down to those refineries in the Twin Cities area.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know we had 2.
I think we drove past that one. Kind of looked like its own city.
They're big facilities.
Yeah, they're huge. Did you have any more questions for Paul?
I just kind of wanted to get back to you, like, just so we can get to know you a little better besides just what you do at Enbridge. I know we talked about college and where you lived, but like what else do you do? Do you like, what are your hobbies? Or
I've got a variety of hobbies. I enjoy outdoor activities. That's probably one just general category. I enjoy hunting and fishing quite a bit. I think that's not abnormal for people that live in northern Minnesota.
Yeah.
But I enjoy in doing that in particular with my kids, even with some neighborhood kids. One thing I've really enjoyed the last couple of years is introducing kids and my daughter in particular to hunting, and that's been fun. She shot a few deer now, and we take it home and hang it up in the backyard and process it ourselves, and the whole family's involved in it, and then we eat a couple deer a year as a family, so we enjoy consuming it too. And we just had game for dinner last night. We had tacos, made with some ground game meat, and it was great. So I enjoy hunting. Another activity that I've got into more in the last few years. This one was driven more by the kids, but I have one daughter that's involved in rock climbing. And so I've gotten more involved in rock climbing
Cool.
over the last maybe 4 or 5 years. Other than that, I enjoy running and skiing and that kind of stuff.
did you say you have 2 kids?
I do, yep.
Both girls?
Both girls.
Oh,
Ooh, nice. How's that going for you?
Good. Girls are awesome.
How old are they?
One's 13 and one's 11.
Oh, 2 teens almost.
I know.
that's gonna be an experience.
It's gonna be an interesting couple years. And my younger daughter, she's been getting more and more involved in basketball, and that's been fun to see, playing games of lightning and pig in the front yard. And she had a little tennis tournament yesterday.
Oh, fun.
That's cool.
Other than that, unless you have anything you want to share that we haven't covered.
Maybe like a deep secret or a fear.
Well, Alyssa and Ricky, what about the two of you? What do you enjoy about this job?
I like meeting all the new people that we haven't met before, and getting to know them and their story and how they've become successful and what they can do to help other people become successful.
Yeah, I would say the stories are my favorite part. Everybody has a story, and everybody's story is different too. It's, you never know what you're gonna hear when you hit record.
Cool. I'll share one last story. I was involved in a conversation back to Andy Wells about oil, and he described it as this. He said it's such an amazing natural resource because there's so much energy in such a small package. And he's right, and it is. But we've got to be responsible in how we use it, and it's limited. It produces carbon, and it is a pretty awesome resource. I think it's gonna be around for a long time, but we also need to do a better job about how we use it, and hopefully, together, we'll learn from each other and find better ways to reduce our consumption and further limit the carbon emissions
Right.
and also transition away.
Yeah, well, like you said, you guys are transitioning into renewables when you can in the future, and I think that's great too.
Yeah. And also at the same time, there's still the need for natural gas up here. Could you imagine if we didn't have natural gas during the winter time here when winter's 11 months out of the year?
I'd have to get a couple more cords of wood and maybe add a second
Right.
fireplace, I think, in my house.
Yeah. But it's nice to hear more about your company and our company you work for and all the stuff you guys do and how you guys interact with tribes too. It's very informational. Thank you for coming down and talking with us about it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, and it's exciting to talk through some of these topics. Again, I'm proud of where Enbridge is heading. We're making enormous investments in renewable energy and in the energy transition. We're partnering more with Indigenous people. I mentioned how we're engaging them, but that carbon capture project is I think a path we're taking to true partnership. And for us, again, like I said earlier, we believe tomorrow's on, and that the company's taking the right steps to build that brighter future.
Well said, Paul.
We might steal that for a quote, if you don't mind.
Go ahead. Well, thanks. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you
Alyssa.
for coming down.
Thanks, Ricky.
Thank you.
But before you leave,
Uh-oh.
it's not we're just going to get back to the trivia question, or the trivia answer.
Oh, yeah. So it was, how many people attend the Minnesota State Fair per year?
I'm going to go with 1 million.
That was my guess too,
A
like
million?
900,000 to 1 million.
So in 2019, the record was set for 2,126,551 people. In 2020, well, 2020, we didn't have a state fair because of COVID. And 2021, I actually think COVID still played a little bit of a role in that because there was only 1,301,584 people last year. But yeah, they average about 100,000 people a day compared to 150,000 people a day. So
that's so crazy how many people go there in the span of,
was it 12 days?
12 days. Yeah.
I think last year might have been it might have been the first year I took my kids there, and I remember thinking, well, this isn't that busy, but maybe your numbers speak for that. It wasn't that busy last year.
Yeah. 700,000 difference
Yeah.
within the span of 2 years.
Minnesota is the largest state fair, right? Is it?
I believe so, yeah. Minnesota get together.
Yeah,
Don't quote me on that because I'm not too positive on that statement there.
I believe it is. It's got to be with that many people. But yeah, so do you have anything else for us?
That's all I got.
No? All right. Well, this has been Middle of the Res Road with Paul and Enbridge, and we will see you next week.
Bye.